Hi guys, Retro Mike here, back with another tutorial video on game development for the Xbox One and Universal Windows platform. So today I'm going to be showing you MonoGame, which is a open source interpretation of XNA, which for those that don't know was the framework that Microsoft had built for the Xbox 360. They dropped it unexpectedly pretty early into its life cycle. However, it was a really good framework and the community picked it up, ported all of it into an open source solution, which is MonoGame. So what we're going to be doing today is I'm just going to be showing you how to integrate MonoGame into a Visual Studio project that can be deployed on the Xbox One. We won't be going into too much detail around actually building out an application, but it's going to be more of how to get the framework up and running in a lightweight manner and deployed onto the Xbox. And then in a future video we'll start talking about how you can draw sprites, do movements, etc. So I'm going to start by creating a new project. And I'm just going to leave the defaults. I went over what target and minimum version mean in the last video. So be sure to check that out if you haven't. Alright, and then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a NuGet package. So MonoGame is a open source library like I mentioned, but it is available on NuGet. So I am just going to type in MonoGame, and you're going to see a bunch come up. What we're looking for is monogame.framework.uwp. Or sorry, Windows Universal. So this is the one for UWP. You have to make sure you use this one or it will not work on the Xbox. So go ahead and say install and say OK. They'll give you a little readme here. If you're not familiar with MonoGame, definitely recommend taking a look at this. Alright, so now MonoGame's installed. So the first thing we need to do is we want to create a game class. So I'm just going to create a new class. I'm going to call this test game. We'll make it public. And we're going to make it inherit from game, which is actually in the Microsoft.xna.framework class or namespace. So if you're not familiar with Visual Studio, I just did a control dot to bring up the IntelliSense, and then it adds the using statement for you. Okay, so now we're inherited from game. If we go ahead and peek the definition of this, you'll see that if we scroll down to the methods, here you'll see these virtual void methods. These are pretty much what we're going to be going after. So there's a there's an initialize, a load content, an unload content, an update, and a draw method. So these are all the methods that we're going to be going after. So what we need to do is we first need to override them. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a constructor. And then we're going to start overriding. So I'm going to start by overriding load content. And then unload content. And then draw. And before draw, I want update. Okay, so the first thing we need to do here is we need to define a graphics device manager. So this will be used to actually render, well, not necessarily render, but actually perform operations against the graphics card. So now what we will do is we need to initialize it. So we're in the test game. We're gonna do graphics equals new graphics device manager, and here you see it's looking for a game, and so we're already in a game, so we can just say this. So that'll use the current instance that we're in and assign it to this graphics object. Okay, so now I'll just go over the other methods real quick. I'm going to add initialize in here as well. So initialize is really where you're going to initialize objects. Load content is for whenever you need to load resources in. So for example, when my game first loads, I may want to load some sprites. So if it's a Pong game, I might be loading the paddles, I might be loading the ball to get everything already in memory. Unload content is right before the app's closing or before the screen is closing. I want to unload those to release them from memory. Update and draw both get called on every frame. Update is where you want to do your calculations. So if you got a ball moving, you may want to adjust the velocity based on how the player's doing. You might want to adjust the X and Y positions. Any type of calculations, that's what you're going to want to do in that method. And then the draw method is where it actually renders on the screen. So if you want to update, let's say you have a score counter. So you want to update the text of that score. At that point, that's where you would update the sprite font, would be in the draw method. So the first thing we're going to do in this draw method is we want to draw a background. So I'm going to clear everything, and I'm going to say color dot, and you can pick a color. This will basically become the background color. So I'm just going to do, I'll do crimson for now. Okay. So now our game is pretty much done. It's enough to render. It will basically just end up with a blank background. So now what I'm going to do is our main page. A normal XAML application, whether it's WPF or Silverlight, will have a grid as your default root container. We're actually going to change that to a swap chain panel, and we're going to give it a name. So we're going to do x:\name, and I'm just going to call it swap chain panel. Okay. So now we have a swap chain panel as our root. So now what I'm going to do is go to the code behind for the XAML page, and I need to create a new instance of the game class I created and launch it. So in order to do that, I'm just going to say test game. I'm just going to call it game. And then inside this initialize, I always define launch arguments. In this case, I don't need to pass any in. I'm just going to leave it empty. And then here, I'm going to actually be launching the application. So here I actually want to say game equals, since this is actually going to give me my instance that I'm looking for. And you're going to want monogame.framework.xamlgame. And again, you can do control dot here if you wanted to add the using. And you need to specify the type. So the type obviously is going to be test game. And dot create. So what this will do is this will basically create that game class, and it's going to render it in the swap chain panel that I created. So launch arguments is empty, so that one's fine. Window, so I always use the core window, the current core window. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm just going to do window.current.core window. And I'm going to give it the swap chain panel that I had created. So now at this point, if I build this, okay, And if I run it, I should have a screen with a background color. Okay, it actually opened on my other screen. So this is what it looks like. And you can see it is fluid, so that's great. I'll go ahead and close this. And that's pretty much all there is to getting it up and running. So now you've got the framework. You don't have to worry about building timers or anything like that. It'll hit this update method with every iteration. And the same thing with draw. So that's pretty much it for this video. In the next video, we will be taking a look at actually building an actual application that will be using these concepts along with controller input and a few other things. I'll be basically continuing the series with that, and starting with the next project, I will be hosting the solution on GitHub, so you'll be able to go there to view the code at any time if you want to download the code, deploy it to your Xbox, or you can just follow along and build as we go throughout the series. This will be extended for at least the next couple months, so I'll be releasing a video every Wednesday, and then I'll also be releasing a video about my game collection or game reviews in general on every Sunday. Be sure to subscribe if you like this content. Always looking to meet new people, and so also feel free to drop me a comment. Do you like this video? Is there anything you'd like to see done differently? Do you have any suggestions for future videos? Any topics? Do you want a clone Pong game created? Do you want Breakout? What do you guys want? A platformer? What would you like to see me create over the span of the next couple months and do a tutorial on to help you guys out? If you liked the video, please leave a like, subscribe. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. It's patreon.com/retromike. It really helps me put together these videos, as well as my game collection videos. Thanks for watching.